Hi there, today I'm going to be going through a very specific part of your Segment Marketo integration, and in particular I'm going to show you how to test that the setup of your Marketo custom activity is correct within Segment. And the way we are going to do this is outlined in bullet point format here, and I'll put a link to this blog post in the description of the YouTube video so you can check that out to get this step-by-step guide here. But I'm going to walk through that in this video as well, so stay tuned. As I mentioned here, the first part of testing that your Marketo custom activity is set up correctly within Segment is to use the event tester in Segment to send a test event to Marketo, and then you can use the event lifecycle in the event tester to see that the event was sent correctly to Marketo, and it will highlight any issues that may occur. And I outline how to do this in the Marketo custom activities quick start guide post. So check out this post to see this first step. So this is the very first thing you do. You use the event tester to send one single test event to Marketo and make sure it goes through correctly. But then the next part of this is we want to check back in, let's say in 7 days time or 30 days time. And we want to make sure that the count of the event arriving into Segment matches the count of the custom activity arriving into Marketo. So if 100 events came into Segment over 30 days, we would expect to see 100 custom activities in Marketo over 30 days. And the way we are going to do this is using the Segment Schema and the Marketo Bulk Extract API. Okay, so let's dive into Segment now to follow these steps to get the count of the event appearing in Segment. So we will go to the source that is responsible for sending the event to Segment. So in this case, I'm going to use the example of the production source. I'm going to go to the schema, and let's say I just set up the custom activity to go to Marketo for the submitted port event. So one thing to note, and I mentioned this here, is you can either select a 7-day time frame or a 30-day time frame. For this example, I'm going to use 7 days, and then later on I'm going to make sure when I'm using the Marketo Bulk Extract API that I'm also using a 7-day time window. So I search for port here, and I'm looking for the submitted port request event. And the number we need to make note of here is the number under the allowed column. In this case, in this example, I can see that 224 submitted port request events were sent to the production source in Segment over the past 7 days. And it's this number that we are going to compare to the number we get from the Marketo Bulk Extract API. Okay, so now I'm going to dive into Postman to show you how to make these API requests that I outline in this blog post. You might be wondering why we need to use the Marketo Bulk API. Why couldn't we just create a smart list and we drag in the custom activity filter and then select a date of activity in the past 7 days? The reason we can't do this is because that smart list would contain the number of people who've done that activity over the past 7 days. However, one person may do that custom activity multiple times. So the number of people in your smart list does not equal the number of times this custom activity has come into Marketo. To get that number, we need to use the Marketo Bulk Extract API. And I link to the Marketo Bulk API Quick Start Guide here. I recommend you take a look at this post and then follow the link to the Marketo API Quick Start Guide. And within this post, this will show you how to get started with Postman. And if you fill out your email address here, I'll email you the Postman collection, which contains all the pre-configured requests that I'm going to go through in the next few minutes. So I highly recommend checking out this blog post, downloading the Postman collection. And then if you're looking for specific instructions on how to get started with the Bulk API, you can check out this post. And then once you've done that, you're ready to make these API requests within Postman that I'm going to go through now. As always, the very first API request we are going to make is the request to get our access token. Once we have our access token, we are going to make the get activity type request, and then we are going to search for the activity name that we are interested in. As I showed at the start of this video, I'm interested in the submitted port event that's coming from Segment. So the corresponding Marketo activity is the MC submit port event. So I search for port here. I'm going to copy the activity ID. I'm going to paste that activity ID into the create job request next to the activity type ID's parameter. And then I'm going to select the same time range that I selected within Segment. So if you remember from within Segment, I selected a 7-day time span. So today is the 15th of July. And an important thing to note is this is UTC time here. I made a note of that in the collection here. The times must be in UTC time. So the UTC time now is 9:30. So 7 days before now is the 8th of July at 9:30. So here I've got a 7-day time span to match the 7-day time span that I selected within Segment. I hit send. I copy this export ID. And then I need to queue the job. So I queue the job here. I paste that in. I hit send. And then I can make the poll job status request repeatedly until I see that the status is completed. Once the status is completed, I will see the number of records, and it's this number that we will compare to the number we got from the segment schema. So if you remember from the segment schema, we got a number of 224 over the last 7 days, and the number we have in Marketo over the last 7 days is 220. If you're interested in seeing the actual lead IDs and more information about these 220 events that came into Marketo, then you can go to the Get Job Data request, paste in the export ID, and then you'll get the lead ID, the activity date, the activity ID, and all the other information associated with this custom activity. And you can save this as a file by clicking these 3 dots and go Save Response to File. And then you can import this into Google Sheets or Excel if you want to do more analysis on it. Anyway, the number of rows here will match the number of records here. And in both cases, the number we have for Marketo is 220, and this is what we are going to compare to Segment. Okay, so we have a number of 220 from Marketo, and just to remind you, we got a number of 224 from Segment. So we can see that these two numbers agree quite closely. So we know that our Marketo custom activity is configured correctly. However, if there is a large discrepancy between these numbers, I highly recommend checking out the Marketo delivery issues section at the end of this blog post to see if there are any errors that you can troubleshoot to try and get these two numbers closer together. However, as I mentioned, it'll be very difficult to get these two numbers to match up exactly. So I'd say if they're quite close together, then be satisfied with that. So there you have it. That's how you can use the Segment Schema and the Marketo Bulk Extract API to compare the number of events coming into Segment with the number of corresponding Marketo activities arriving in Marketo. And I highly recommend checking out the Marketo API crash course, which will give you an introduction to making your first Marketo API request using Postman. And in particular, lesson 5 is an introduction to the Marketo Bulk Extract API. So it will walk you through making the requests that I showed you in Postman within this video. So check out the Marketo API crash course, and then you'll be able to upgrade your Marketo API automation game. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thank you.